so the first item of business is approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler. Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, so the next item of business is presentations, and I don't believe we have any presentations tonight. The next item of business after that is public participation, and we have no one signed up for public participation. At this time, we'll move into treasurer items. Ms. Bowers?
Mr. Messerschmidt, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the board minutes from the December 18, 2023 meeting.
You want to put items A and B together? We can't do that. Okay. So, looking for a motion to approve the board minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting on December the 18th, 2023.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, looking for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Abstain.
Motion carries 3-0. Next, I would like to block items B and C and ask for a motion to approve the board meeting minutes from January 8th organizational meeting as well as the work session.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the board minutes from our organizational meeting on January 8th as well as our work session on January 8th.
So moved.
Mr. Michael Pressler, and I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler. Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next agenda item, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the December 2023 financial reports as presented.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the December 2023 financial reports as presented.
So moved.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler. Any discussion?
I got a question. The POs for over 10,000. Actually, hold on a second. Yeah, are a lot of those, they come out of that safety grant?
The very first three, those are all safety
All
grants.
right.
So, for those that haven't seen this, I wanted to talk a little bit about the enrollment at the district level. And you can find this in the first attachment on the agenda. In fiscal year 19, we had 3,839 students. That number climbed to 3,879 in 2020. But the district has continued to shrink from that point to where we are now, with a projected enrollment of 3,600 students in FY24. So the district will see a reduction in students of 279 students projected for next year compared to where we were at the highest point over the last 5 years. And I think that's important to talk about as we go forward tonight, because quite honestly, I think that's something that we need to start looking at and something that we need to consider. Also wanted to talk a little bit about our numbers in our virtual academy. In FY22, which I believe was the first year of the virtual academy, we had 77 students enrolled. That number grew to 89, and next year is projected to be at 78 students in the virtual academy. Those were just facts that I wanted to present based off of the information that was in here. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to discuss pertaining to the December 2023 financial reports?
Well, just that I don't think 22 was the first year for the virtual academy. So I don't know why there's
Was
not
it?
numbers.
I'm not it's probably the first year we started tracking numbers. I have to-
20, yeah. long time ago.
2017 is the first year.
Okay, so 2017. Do we know roughly how many students were in the virtual academy those first several years?
It typically fluctuates because in the beginning, there's about 20 or 30 to 50 kids, and then towards the end of the year, it grows as we work with average seniors who leave and graduate.
So are those numbers pretty consistent, 70 to 80 kids a year? Is that-
80 to 120, 130.
They were anticipating 100 for next year,
Right.
Okay.
according to a most recent meeting.
I would like to add in here that they do service a lot of students that aren't necessarily in the virtual academy. Often we'll have students that need credit recovery. They may go there for 1 bill a day, sometimes 2 bills a day. So just because there's 78 kids identified with a virtual academy status, I would bet you he services at least 120 or 130 when you throw in the little ones and twos that are there for credit recovery.
And that's 9 through 12?
Correct.
Yeah,
A couple
just-
eighth graders.
Yeah, on occasion, there's middle school or two that goes.
So did we actually consider this as a virtual academy prior to 2022? Is that,
That's why we started.
That's all the information I have.
Yes. It was called Virtual Academy right from the onset.
okay. I wasn't on the board then, so I wasn't familiar. Thank you for answering that, Scott. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, Ms. Bowers, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft,
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler,
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve a donation from board office employees to be used to offset an old food service charge account.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve a donation from the board office employees.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler. Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler,
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
How much where are we at with that, with old lunch charges and stuff? Are
This
we-
really old one that's been set aside since 2014, still negative about 188,000.
But not for this year. That's
No,
old debt.
this is an old account that
This is years, this
Prior
is stuff
to
prior, this was
Yes.
like.
January, it was paid down to about 1,200.
now that, we have a couple different accounts. So back in 2014, the former treasurer moved all those lunch charges into an account by themselves. We've chipped away a little bit at a time, but it's still huge. And some of our office staff approached us with doing little fundraisers. Can they wear jeans on certain days or whatnot? And we're just dumping it all in here. I know it's a little bit, but we're just trying to chip away at this. So that has been hanging out there. It was more than 200,000. We're getting at a point now that, so if you look at students that are in grade 12, if they pay their old charges to graduate or whatever, been hanging out here since 2014, we're getting to a point to where there aren't many more that are gonna be paying toward that deficit. So we're just trying to find creative ways to chip away a little bit at a time to try and get rid of it.
But we're doing a better job now of
100%.
staying up on it.
Yes.
So
making
last
sure-
year at this time, we were looking at what, 48,000, and this year we're at about 1,200.
Oh, nice.
That's a significant improvement.
We've been implementing our policy and procedures and following up, and I don't know how much more has been charged since the 1st of January, but that's where we were prior to break.
So that is with this current year, and I want this on the record as well. The food service fund itself is still negative right now, 420,000. So when you put those two together, we're talking 700,000 if you look at those together. We're working on that, chipping away as we can. We have been monitoring monthly. I'm looking at inventory, and we actually, a few months ago, I brought to you that we were going to go into a consortium and start looking for cheaper ways to buy food. We were able to jump in October, but it doesn't start until the next fiscal year. So we're working there. It's just gonna take us a little bit of time to get in that to where we can reduce the food costs. We
Are
should be.
districts like us in that debt?
Yes, yeah, and especially with COVID coming, we're not, I wouldn't say that they have the amount of debt that we do. We allow way too many charges, and that's how we got here. We're working on this. So the one thing I wanted to tell you, our food costs need to be about 40%. They're about 57, so that's what we're working. Last month was 58, this month was 57. We're working on getting that down. It's just a slow process.
So that 400-some thousand, that's total over the past years, that's a total deficit.
That's
Since 2014?
Yes, that's running since 2014.
But we're still running a deficit right now as we speak, just, we're adding to that deficit right now. Is what
Well-
you're saying, because we'd have to jack up prices of
Yeah, we're not adding as much though, because we have been fortunate to have so many people to step up. I think $600 last month from 7 Mile Presbyterian Church that was able to go out and wipe out the charges for the kids at the Early Childhood Center. We've been fortunate to have people step up and take care of that. That way it's not having to get dumped into this.
That's not sustainable though.
It's not sustainable. It just, that's a lot of debt to try and recoup. It's just gonna take us a little bit of time, but
Yeah.
we are working on it. Is there any other questions? Next, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the Catalyst Counseling contract as presented.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the Catalyst contract as presented.
So moved.
Ms. Amy Ashcraft, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, any discussion?
Well, I was wondering how much we're really using them. Are we using them? I've not heard a whole lot about it.
Yes, Lindsay can jump in here quite a bit. We're using Catalyst. Would you like to?
Yes, we're using Catalyst in every single building. I think there's 14 therapists now across the district that are servicing students for individual therapy. And then we also contracted with them for a school-based support worker who is helping to run groups, the elementary levels, with the deficit of having one less school psychologist this year who was previously running social emotional groups. We've been able to take some of that and help some of our young learners who are struggling with managing emotions, things like that.
Okay. Gary and I were just talking about this the other day because we remember approving it, but we hadn't really heard anything.
So it's something that we
Great
already
asset
had, it's something we
to our
already had,
program.
it just went up in price a little bit.
Just
And
a little
workers,
bit,
because
but we
we're
got
down
more hours,
psychologists.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So in on the last page, it talks about the cost associated with this, and it says that cost per day is $250 a day in one column, but in the next two columns, it says it's $362 a day. What's the actual cost?
I think it depends on which worker. 362 a day at the schools for 95 days.
But
And
then
that's for the site-based. And then for the 200, is that a different description? Lindsay, can you help us with that? No?
No, I haven't seen this, Kelly, so I'm not sure. I know, based on our conversations with them, they do have different levels of support personnel, where one might be a licensed
Depends on their
social
license.
worker and others are not licensed, so that depends on the level of support that they can provide. Person we had previously, Mrs. Feige, who left, was not a licensed social worker, so we have not filled that position with them yet, so I think that is dependent.
And the
on-
95 days was added to assist with some of our students that are out on expulsion and abeyance, and they need, if they're caught vaping or with any type of substance, they have to get X amount of hours before they can come back to school. Well, that was such a stretch for many families that this is the cost for that.
Okay. Is that the same thing that
That's
we're seeing here?
95 days for the licensed person that can provide that type of therapy. The other is $250 a day, so it's a different license at 7 days a week.
So the part where it talks about that it's free serving those Medicaid and private insurance
Yes.
plans, So are students actually paying?
Their
families?
Medicaid, they
Insurance.
share their insurance Medicaid information, and then the families bill, and they don't charge us.
Or private insurance, not just money.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any more discussion on this?
No.
Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. The next agenda item, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the resolution to participate in the EPC Cooperative School Bus Purchasing Program.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution to join the school bus purchasing program for FY24.
So moved.
Miss Amy Ashcraft, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, any discussion? Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Hold on, yeah, I do got a question. So let's cover, because the other bus we're looking at, was that one used, slightly used?
We were looking at a used bus and we didn't get it. So, working with the EPC, they actually go out and bid for us. This is not actually for the bus, that is later on down in the agenda, but this is just a resolution to work with the EPC to provide us.
What, so this program probably doesn't cover used buses, if I only do, right?
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
But this is a program that we are already.
We're already in it, we just want a resolution to work with them. That
Okay.
has to be done before.
So is this the same program that's gonna take us into the next agenda item, which is the purchase of the
Yes.
special need?
This has to be done in order.
It's all making sense now. Okay, any other discussion?
No.
Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next agenda item, I would like to ask for a motion to purchase a special needs bus.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the purchase of a special needs bus.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler, any discussion?
Is this the negotiated price from, this is as low as we can get it?
Yes.
So that was my question. This, it looks like the list price on this is $242,000 and it says less customer allowance. Is that money
Because
that we
we're part of the
negotiated?
co-op. Yes, because we're part of the co-op.
So the total cost to the district is just short of $121,000?
Yes.
So are we gonna have to, are we set up, we're supposed to purchase 2 buses a year in order to, be able to retain our fleet, keep everything up to date?
That would be ideal.
So we're still gonna have to purchase another bus this year?
I did not forecast for a second bus this year. We did the one, knowing that we were looking out with the cuts last year, going back to a 2-tier and whatnot.
Right.
So we only planned for 1 bus in this school year. But ideally, yes, we should be replacing 2 buses each year.
That's to have 22 in our fleet. Right now, we're using 17.
Yes.
So I know we're not presenting the 5-year forecast tonight, but the last 5-year forecast that I remember seeing showed a deficit of roughly $600,000 for next year. Does this $120,000, is that represented in that?
It's already included. We actually put 170 in there, not knowing if we would get a special needs bus or a regular bus. So we actually forecasted to spend 170,000 in transportation this year. I would also like to add this morning, I got a call very early as soon as I got there from Mr. Schwartz. I'm not sure if he's here tonight or not, but Bus 6 actually went down on us today, and we've been talking for months now about getting a special needs bus. And the timing, we need it. We don't have another spare. We only have those 2, and we need to have access to wheelchair lifts and.
So this will replace one of the buses that are currently being used, and one of the ones that are being used will go now.
The spare will stay a spare instead of, yes.
And this one has all the
Yes.
wheelchair accessible.
Lifts and the.
Yes.
Is this where it goes in through the right side of the bus in the back?
He's not here.
Yeah, it has a lift, correct.
Yes.
And these are brand new warranty, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff? Okay. Any more discussion? Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler,
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. The next agenda item is a motion to dispose of non-operative buses. And there is a list there if you want to look at those numbers.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the disposal of 4 buses.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. Any discussion?
So I did some research today on like average, the school districts and the average length of time for a school bus, because I noticed, you know, the mileage on these. And most school districts aim for like 200,000 miles on a bus, so it looks like we're pretty good on all those. And then also 12 to 15 years is what you're looking at for the life of a bus. So I mean, we did pretty well on a lot of these buses, so.
So when you've got these listed as basically scrap, how are we gonna, what are we gonna do to dispose of these?
They will purchase the buses from us. Now, we have a couple options. We can use a credit and buy parts from them, or they would cut us a check. And I can tell you that none of them are gonna drive. A couple of the buses, Shane told me the cross members are just rusted out so bad. I mean, they've sat there. The one is in his bay right now, which is taking up the bus garage and leaving them limited room to work. So he would like to get that one towed out of there so that they actually have another bay in their buses and work on. He did tell me, and I don't know this, it's not in my wheelhouse, but he thought around $4,000 for them that they would give us to come and tow these away.
So we're selling these to somebody that's gonna part about?
Scrap them for, yes.
Okay.
And the one I know, he told me is, I mean, it's strict. Anytime a bus needs something, they go to these buses, and if they can get it, then they'll go take the wipers. One of the buses, he did tell me, has fairly newer tires on it, and he would take all of those off of it before he got them.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. That's all I have at this time.
All right, thank you. The next item of business is superintendent items.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to recommend that we group items 6A, B, and C to include 2 field trip approvals, the OHSAA membership for the school year 2024-25, as well as Be Safe Drivers Ed, which is an extracurricular class.
So you're grouping all those together in my first meeting, I've got to say all that, just like,
It's a test.
it's kind of
Would you like me to separate them?
kind of hoping I would develop into this before you threw that one at me. So I'm looking for a motion to approve 2 field trips, 1 DECA and 1 EPS first grade to the zoo, the OHSAA membership for school year 2024 and 2025, and the Be Safe Driver's Education class.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft, any discussion?
We do have 1 overnight trip in there for advanced classes. That looks like a fun trip, by the way, to our 2 teachers in the audience to Chicago, but sounds like a great opportunity for our kids. Plenty of adult versus student.
Yeah, I saw 100.
Yes.
Was it 12 adults per 100 students? Is that what it says? That'd be fun. All right, Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Pressler?
Yes.
Andrew Pressler, I'm sorry. Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, well, I was rushing through, so we could certainly do our next item. We have a supplemental nomination I'd like to recommend to the board for approval. And at this time, I'm going to ask Scott Clemens, our athletic director, and Trace Reynolds, who we are recommending to be our next head football coach, to the podium. So,
what a great night to be here. As a head coach, you're always, counted on, to do things, but the most important thing is what happens to your young men when they leave out here. What kind of people they become, what kind of fathers, what kind of legacy do they leave in the things they do. And it's very humbling and honored tonight to have one of my former players being, honored to be the next head football coach, the 11th head football coach in the history of Edgewood football, Coach Trace Reynolds.
probably need a motion, then we might start talking to him. Or?
Yes. So I'm looking for.
We do.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the supplemental nomination of Trace Reynolds as the 11th head football coach of Edgewood High School.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler, any discussion? We can talk to him if we need to.
Hey, congratulations. Welcome, Trace.
Thank you.
Excited.
Welcome to the team.
So have you figured out your first month what you're going to do or anything?
Absolutely.
It's not a test. I just thought I'd put you on the spot. Well, welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here for this tonight too.
Thanks for having me.
So if there's no more discussion or questions, Amy, you have something?
No.
Ms. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
And I just have a few superintendent items, which hopefully will go quick. Just want to brag on Rachel Fryman, our media specialist. According to the Ohio Library Association, she received an award for creating collaborative lessons that lead to student learning, and she's receiving free materials for the district. So another alternative revenue, which we always certainly enjoy. Would like to just do a shout out to the curriculum department who put on an outstanding professional development day on January 5th. And some staff members came in and said, you know what, can we go back to that curriculum summit idea where people can just choose what topics they'd like to attend and allow more choice. And we know research says collaboration is important and choice is important, as much for adults as it is for students, but we sometimes forget to do that. But the feedback's been very positive, so congratulations and good work to our curriculum department. And that's something that we're going to do again every year. It's nice to have those opportunities. It's just reviving.
That's awesome.
And then just keeping you in the loop, met with Miami University, Hamilton, Middletown branches, and we have about, Doug, would you say about 26 students that qualify for courses at their junior and senior year where they can actually leave with a 2-year degree. So if that's something that Edgewood students are interested in, we're seeking some information. It could free up some additional electives that we offer here, which has come up from time to time in regard to what we offer. But look for more information about that.
Were they doing that at Talawanda when you were there?
Well, it was so close to Miami. Yes, they were doing that because students could just bus over. It was just very easy. But I will tell you, when I attended a meeting in at the Voice of America, New Miami's doing this, Hamilton's doing this, Madison. It was like Edgewood was the only one not on the map. And I'm like, why aren't we on there? And it is a good opportunity. I think it creates a little, probably, stress because you're wondering how many of these students are going to leave and what does that do to our staffing. We don't anticipate this changing our staffing at all. There might be a few students that will want to go and get 2 full years on campus and graduate with associate degree.
You know, I sit on a board that Warren Davidson does to select students, candidates to go to the military academies. They go through this board process to get the nomination, and I remember specifically we had a student from Talawanda several years ago that was going to graduate from Miami University 3 weeks before he graduated from Talawanda High School. So it's a pretty cool program.
It is, yep. So anyway.
I know Monroe, I'm pretty sure they have Cincinnati State, they got a relationship with Cincinnati State, and they have some of their teachers, you get college credit for taking the classes, and they're not even leaving, or, they might take online courses or whatever. But
I think campuses have become more innovative in how to attract future students. I mean, there's no, obviously there's no guarantee that a student that would participate in this program would even go to Miami. They don't mind. And actually they're gearing it towards, they're only going to accept so many students in. I think, I would be lucky to see if all 10 people would take it out of 20 some. But they're giving priority to students on free and reduced lunch, or if they're the first family member to go to college. So they're actually setting this up to create an avenue for someone that may not ever consider college. So that's what attracted my attention. I was like, wow.
Is there a limit on the number of
10.
10.
That's why I don't think it's going to impact staffing in any way, obviously. So, and we'll see.
What's that number based on? Is that
26 qualified. I don't know what they base 10 on. If we have more, I'm sure we could talk to them, but they want to be able to service all the surrounding districts, so it's probably what they have staffing for.
Okay.
Would be my guess, Mark. But. Okay, the next item, you've been hearing a lot about working with community engagement, revising our strategic plan. Our next meeting with our community is next month. I'm meeting with administrators. There's a small group of administrators that are on our strategic planning to really hone in on our 3 key focuses and come up with an action plan. So I'll just bring that next month to you, but wanted to keep you in the loop. But the last piece is around health and safety. And of course, you've had a lot of family participation in here since December 1st, and we've been making a lot of changes. I will say that Michael Pressler had a great idea. He asked when he came on board, how do families report any type of misbehavior? We all want to say bullying. The state defines it very differently than we do as parents. So the whole idea is my child getting picked on or not? And if so, what does that look like? Where did it happen? Who was it reported to? So we created a document that anyone can self-report, a student, a parent, a staff member, and then we have a real good way to track it in regard to, we can isolate it by building, we can isolate it by infraction, but for all the hype that Edgewood has a bullying problem, I just want you to know we've had 3 reports so far. That's good news. That's good news.
Yeah.
Also, from a very tragic situation, something good has come about. Our community's really rallied together. We have a community member that wants to put together an after-school mentoring program, and we hope to kick it off in March. Have met with them twice. She has student leaders as well as adult leaders. Everybody would have to get background checked, but she's putting the curriculum together, and the goal is to have a parent session meeting to say who would be interested towards the end, first 2 weeks of February. But I haven't heard back. I don't know if that's still online or not, but I think that's really nice of our community to step up and say, this isn't just a school issue. This is a home issue, school issue, community issue, and we want to get active and help. And I just was really impressed with that whole sense of assistance. So that's good news. The other
when are we going to
piece,
start publicly releasing information on that?
all the letters have been created. I helped create them, and I gave them to the president that's working through this process. I'm just waiting to hear back. The goal was to communicate at the end of next week and actually invite families in the first 2 weeks of February. But because of the training that has to happen on her end, I'm just waiting to hear back.
Now, about the reporting, reporting an incident,
Yes.
is that the newsletter or the email that I got, basically step by step on how to, wasn't there an
Yes,
email that went
yes.
out on how to
Yes,
actually
and you
report
can
an
access
incident?
it off the district website. Yes.
Oh, that's, all right, that's good.
And so you don't have to go all the way to the state level. If it's just something, my child got off the bus and was crying or whatever, feel free to fill that out and we can investigate it. But again, we've only had 3, so not that I'm looking for a whole lot more, but I think it kind of gives me some data to go on, because when all this is going on, you're like, what's happening in this district, and have we totally lost it? But it's always good to reassess where you are and really hone in on how can we get better. And I've been impressed with the community stepping up, staff stepping up, and of course some great ideas of just how we report it. Let's see, also we are adding to our vulnerability walks under our safety department. We're always not always, at least once or twice a year we work with SROs, local safety officials, look to see what are those hot spots in our building. Are we leaving doors open, windows open, can anybody access? But we're also just adding a piece to say, are we supervising on the playground like we should? Or are people separated? Are we watching within bird's eye view? So we're just really looking at our processes and how we can improve. And that concludes my information items. Any questions?
No, it's a great update, Kelly. Thank you. All right, so the next item of business is items from board members. Michael Pressler, do you have anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Amy, do you have anything?
I do not.
Andrew, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Riley Holman for, is it Holman?
Yes.
For hitting the 1,000 point mark. So, good job, Riley.
Isn't there like a celebration this
Yeah,
week?
we'll do that. The 2 records she has broken so far, she's been away. so Thursday night against Seton, we're home. We'll honor her before the game.
Did the coach not think about benching her or
That's why I
something?
said she got close like to just send her the rest of the game. They needed her. So Thursday night before the game, we will honor Riley and her accomplishments.
Just out of curiosity, do you know if that's how many times that's happened
Then
before?
she's the 3rd young lady. So Julie Arnold first in '88, and then Jamie Bridge '97 graduated, now Riley, so she's our 3rd female.
Wow.
Third female over 1,000 points in her high school basketball career.
That's
Correct.
impressive.
And she broke the Stills record a couple weeks ago too. So
What's the all-time?
I have to look it up. Sorry.
I'm asking you a lot of
I know a lot of
questions.
facts, just on numbers.
No,
She's
that's
got 2 more records. She could walk out here arguably with 1,000 point club and 3 or 4 other overall records in her career.
That's awesome. Congratulations to her. So a couple things from me. I wanted to ask some questions, and I don't know if I understand all the specifics around 8th grade art being cut, but I've heard that come up in the community quite a few times about an opportunity that's being denied to our 8th graders. I know I've always taken my daughter to that spring art festival that they do every year, and there's some really awesome things that are presented in there. It's a really great event, and just was kind of curious if there's a background to this. How did we get here? I'm sure this was part of budget cuts, right?
Correct.
Is this a long term? Is there a plan to get out of it?
We'd have to pass a levy to get out of it unless we reorganize where we put staff. So what happened is over the last 3 years, we've reduced our budget by $2 million, and that's been a number of teachers and administrators and even classified staff. So through retirements and attrition, we may have had an art teacher retire, it wasn't replaced, and then we reallocate, and I would say that's what's happened. How many years has it been since the middle schools had 8th grade art? Just 1? That happened through last spring's reductions, or has it been longer than that?
Before that,
It was cut down to 1 period.
Then you're going on 2 years now, 2nd year, so that was when it was done.
So it was down to 1 period
I
last
thought
year.
I did that last spring.
And then
Yes.
completely cut this year.
So how many kids, if we had to guess, would want to take it where
I've asked
you no
that
longer get
question,
the opportunity?
and I've not gotten a number. I asked that question several times, and I do not have a number.
From a person that's not close to it. It just seems like to bring back one period of art doesn't seem like that would be impossible.
Right.
But I remember when we were making our cuts, it was tough because we were nickel and diamond. I mean, we were like going through, it was hard because, I mean, it was just like a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And I mean, a lot of those little things, it adds up. And
It
once you
does.
cut the big items, it's like now you're down to those.
So what
those
happens
small-
is through retirement, you don't always fill those positions, and then in time, when it's not filled, you're cutting, you're not being, seamless with your programming.
Yeah, because I agree, Mark, but it's probably something we have to look into cutting something else in order, and then you don't know, you know, what you're gonna eliminate in order to bring something back. You know?
What, it's been suggested that this is where I asked the principal to give me some input. So from the fine arts teachers, the question is, do we have to have 2 Butler Tech courses at the middle school? So then I asked the principal that information. So I think the perception's not the same, if you read between my lines.
So this is not anything that we're gonna relook at for next year, this is pretty much what we've got going
It
forward?
hasn't been proposed by the principal to this date.
Okay.
But we can always, hey, you're board president, if you want us to look at that, we will look at that.
Well, I mean, obviously we've got limitations and constraints financially. I've heard this from several places, so I thought I would ask the question.
And I think the perception is too, what's next? So, you know, you cut a teacher here, a teacher there. People are feeling like, especially when you're in the fine arts world, you know, hey, if we ever have to go down to bare bones, state minimum, it's probably my area. And that makes people feel restless. And I'm gonna say it again, and this may not be popular with the board or the constituents, but when we don't pass school levies and we don't increase our budget, we lose quality staff. So my fear is we're gonna lose some quality staff in fear that we're not bringing these programs back, and they'll go elsewhere. We're already down 2 psychologists that are making $20,000 more in neighboring districts. It's starting to hurt. We have to start talking about what do we want Edgewood to look like, and how do we get there? And in my humble opinion, it means a levy.
Well, that's a good transition into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So over the break, I had to drive up to Columbus, and I went up 503. And when I got to West Elkton, there's an abandoned building in West Elkton. You go a little further north, and there's one. I think it's West Alexandria. There's another one. Boarded up windows and weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot, overgrown landscape, and really just kind of an eyesore to the community. And you know, it really wasn't that long ago we were in here talking about the failed levy and what we were going to do, you know, what programs that we were going to cut, and I think everybody remembers that we all thought that it was going to come down, that we were going to have to make a decision on shutting down 7 Mile. You know, I don't think anybody on the board wanted to do that, but we kind of felt that maybe we weren't going to have a choice. And at the recommendation of both of you, you said you didn't think that we needed to do that for this year. And Patty's done a phenomenal job with balancing the budget, and we're going to finish this year balanced out. But, you know, I brought up that 5-year forecast, and the numbers for next year shows that we are at least $600,000 in the deficit. Which, you know, I remember we were having the discussion, and we kept talking about how we were spending more than we were bringing in, and we've done that for several years leading into the levy, and we kind of said, how did we get to this point? You know, how did this happen? But I think we're back there again, right? So we're $600,000 short for next year. We don't have a levy approved, and my personal opinion is I think it's going to be very difficult to get a levy to pass with the way things have changed with in Butler County with taxes, and I think everybody understands what's going on with that situation. So my biggest fear is that we're going to get to a point where we have to say we don't have enough money to run all of our buildings, and we're going to have to make a decision about potentially closing one. But I also think when we get to the point where we don't have the money to run it, we don't have the money to dispose of it. I don't think we will have the funds to tear it down, and if we can't find somebody that will come in and purchase that building or take that building and tear it down, we're potentially going to leave an eyesore in one of our buildings, and I think we all know probably more likely than not that would be the 7 Mile building. And I just, as a community member that grew up here and somebody that lives here, it is going to be unbelievably difficult for me ever to vote to close a building if there is not a plan to tear that building down and leave it as a green space and leave it in a, where it's not an eyesore. So I also think that we're at the point too where, and I talked about it tonight in student enrollment, that the numbers are down basically 10% across the district from 2020 to 2024. And I think that if we were to ever grow again, and I know that I've got some friends on the Trenton City Council, and there's a lot of growth that's taking place in Trenton, and there's some new neighborhoods that are popping up north of here. And if we ever get back to 4,000 students and we've shut a building down, we're not going to have enough room for everybody. So I think we need to start having some real conversation now about things that we can do to try to save money. And I've got a lot of ideas, and I think we all got some ideas, but I think now is our time to act. I think now is our time to start thinking about this, and now is our time to start having some real serious conversations about where we can find that money from. Otherwise, we could potentially be in that situation where we run out of options, and right now I think we have options. So, one of the ideas that I had potentially was to look at an expansion of our virtual academy or alternative school or something along those lines. And I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but I think, looking at this, and I've heard that we have the potential that we could expand this down to include 7th grade. I think there's the possibility of potentially selling seats to other districts in Butler County to where it becomes almost a revenue stream into the district, bringing kids in from neighboring districts. I think there's possibility here, and again, I'm not an educator, Scott, I'm not a curriculum director, I don't know what this looks like, but if we're $600,000 in the red, and I'm suspecting that number is growing as the year goes on, if we don't start having some real serious conversation, we're going to look back on this a year from now and go, what were we thinking? Why didn't we do something? Why didn't we act? And one thing that comes to mind very, very quickly, and something that potentially is easier to do than other things, is to potentially expand that virtual academy and put it in that building in 7 Mile and consolidate the rest of the kids on Boozenbark and Baybeck. I don't know what that looks like, and I'm not asking to solve that problem tonight, but I'm asking if there's an interest with the board to start having some conversation. And I know there's people that's watching this video right now that says, well, Messerschmitt ran for the school board. He was all about community-based elementaries, and he was all about protecting 7 Mile. I'll be very honest with you, that's what I ran on, and that is very important to me. But I think that ship has sailed, and I don't think that we are going to be able to go back anytime soon. And I think we need to start having some real serious conversation. The real easy thing to do would be to do nothing and just say, hey, we ran out of money, we got to shut it down, it is what it is. But I think if we truly want to try to keep that building open so that we have options in the future, this is something that we need to start thinking about, something that we need to start discussing. So I think what I would like to see from the board, and we can open up for discussion here in just a second, is there an appetite to start having this conversation? Kelly, is there an appetite with you and the administrators to start looking at this? And will it do two things? Will it save us money, and how much will it save us? And the other piece is will it keep a foothold on that building so that if we ever needed to go back and move it into an elementary school at some point, because the district grows, because of all the things that the Trenton City Council is doing, do we have that ability to move back into that building? So again, this is going to be a controversial discussion. I think there's going to be a lot of I think there's going to be a lot of passion about this. I think there's going to be a lot of people in the community that want to participate in this. But I think it's worth having this conversation, because if we do nothing, we know we're going to run out of money next year. And if we don't pass a levy, then the situation gets much worse. And right now, I don't think we can count on passing a levy anytime soon, because wasn't that long ago, we just failed a levy. Nothing's changed other than everybody's taxes have gone up. So I'm gonna.
Are we allowed to discuss this?
I'm gonna end it here and just kind of open it up to you guys for comments.
Okay, so I mean, I would like to say, like, virtual academy, I'm not sure how all that would work exactly, but I do remember when we had prior discussions about 7 Mile and stuff in the past, that it was brought up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a building, once it's not occupied by students, or you can't bring students back to there, especially a building at that age and that old, you wouldn't be able to get basically the licensing to be able to occupy students there. Is that correct?
I've never heard of that, but that doesn't.
Okay, well, that's what I was told. I was told that, so we have to use that building in some way. The students have to stay in that building, or else it would be very hard to be able to get back in that building.
You could give up the IRA.
If we gave it up altogether, if we moved everybody out and we just closed it for a couple of years, we'd never be allowed to use it again. So I do think we need to look at some way to go ahead and start looking into the future, because I mean, one of the first things that I did when I got on the school board is we started making cuts. I mean, and in the beginning it was easier. As it goes on, it gets harder and harder and harder. I mean, we already have a pay to participate fee. We've made so many cuts. I mean, and it's not well liked from the community. So one of the hardest things I've done since being on the board is making those cuts and trying to weigh what is best for this district. And I definitely think if there's some way we can reevaluate or look at the way that the district is structured to save money and keep from having to make those cuts, like 8th grade art, or eliminate some extracurriculars or anything like that, I think we definitely ought to look at those avenues. So whatever that is.
Amy, any thoughts?
I just have a lot of questions on how it would work. I don't know. I think it's going to take a lot. It's not something that I'm going to do easily. Because I think we make a lot of decisions because we're scared of that $600,000 in the negative. And I think this is something that needs to be thoroughly thought through and not a knee-jerk reaction. So I have lots of questions on how this would work. So I think, if we want to look into it, we can look into it. But I think there's a lot of moving parts, and I don't think it's going to be as easy as just moving those kids over there and that's that.
Mike?
So I'd like to see the financials on everything and estimate on how this thing would operate. So that's my big question. There's so many questions that I have that I would need to answer before I can make an informed decision.
Yeah.
I do remember that when we were going through the levy, I think it was pretty close to what our deficit is next year. If we were to shut it down, if we were to shut 7 Mile down, it would cover our deficit for next year. But that's without any sort of revenue. So if you were to do what you're suggesting, Mark, and you were to sell seats or whatever, and you could generate some sort of revenue off that building, plus find some sort of savings by moving staff over, because I'd imagine there would be some areas that you could save, but I'm curious to see on the savings aspect of the things as well. So
I don't know if it's going to be as big of a savings as you might think in the beginning. Also, we can sell seats, but it's not like we're going to make a lot of revenue on that. The seats we'd be selling are to the students that they're having a hard time educating. So with that, it's going to involve some additional resources. So it's not just a clean swipe, but I did share a document, food for thought, of what to be considered. And you let me know after you read that if you want hard numbers, or you want me just to go ahead and get hard numbers for next time.
I think we need to start having some we don't have a plan B. We're $600,000 short, and that deficit is growing, and we have no plan B. So I feel like we have to do something.
And we definitely need to look into options. Because like you said, I mean, we're just continuing to add to the deficit. And I don't see us passing a levy anytime soon, and then at what point do we go, oh, you know, we might have to shut down the school altogether, and like Mark said, now you got a building sitting there empty.
Right.
And we don't have the funds to tear it down.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like this is our time to make some really tough decisions and have some conversation, but it just, to me, seems like it would be very irresponsible to go into next year knowing that we are gonna spend more money than we are bringing in and not look at every option. So this may not be the answer, but I think we at least need to have some conversation around it. And if it's not the answer, then I think we need to start looking at some other things. Like I said, I feel like it would be very irresponsible of us not to at least try to figure out a way to balance that budget.
Well, yeah, the easy thing would be to do what a lot of this, it'd be to cut transportation to everybody in the high school over a certain age. That would be the easy thing to do, to go through and start cutting, you know, pay to play, you know, double pay to participate, what we're paying right now, but, you know, that's not, we need to get creative and try looking at ways that we can do something.
So are we interested enough as a board to start to maybe schedule a workshop to talk about this?
I mean, I think we need to have, maybe look at this and look at other options if there's other ideas
I agree.
from administration.
Yeah, I think we ought to look into everything. We need to start planning, because I don't see, I mean, we're gonna have, I mean, here soon it's gonna be on here to pass a levy, so.
Well, our goal next month is to do a state of the schools address, which will give you an idea of where we are academically, with some perception, as well as numbers, which I think the time is now. You're right. Are we on the ballot? Are we off the ballot? And if we're not going to the ballot, how are we gonna save money? We have to do something. We're at the fork of the road.
So what do you think, Kelly, in terms of, does it make sense to put together a work group to have some conversation around this? Is that something that you want to talk with your staff and then set something up with the board?
We've had several meetings on Virtual Academy, just how to enhance it. So this isn't anything new as far as Virtual Academy discussions. Location, yes. Again, I sent you some notes, so it's already kind of, I'm just keeping you abreast of where we are so far on cost and needs just for Virtual Academy. Our license is about up. It's something we're looking at in regard to what we need in our budget, but absolutely, we can come back with some more information on this.
I think for this to work, I think we would have to figure out a way to be able to share resources with the high school. And I do think that there's a lot of opportunities with technology. I mean, I do meetings with people all over the country on a daily basis through Teams calls, you know, using Microsoft Suite. I think, you know, I think that there are ways that we can get creative on sharing some of the resources and maybe not have everything that you're suggesting in the building, but I don't know. I think we could potentially use technology, Zoom calls and different things and try to work it that way. But I think if it doesn't save us any money, it's not worth doing. But if it saves money, then I think we need to seriously consider it. And I think before we do this, I think what we probably should have is you come back to us after you've had an opportunity to talk with your staff, and then maybe we set something up publicly where we get up here and we talk about it as a board so that we can have community involvement. We obviously want the ETA involved, and you know, Scott, you and the folks that work in the Virtual Academy. But I think we just need to have everybody come together and sit down and talk and see if this is where we want to go. But I like I said, now is the time to do something, and quite honestly, I'm afraid that if we don't do something right now, in 2 years from now, there's going to be plywood over top of those windows at that building in 7 Mile, and nobody wants to see that.
Well, where do we set up, you think, a work session to look at this as well as any other budget?
Yeah, any other, yeah, because I mean, we don't want to get in a panic. We don't want to get in a financial situation where we're coming in here and we're just starting to cut stuff.
Right.
You know.
Okay, we'll throw some dates out. Are there any nights to avoid when planning a work session? Okay.
But I think we need to move on this as if it works. I think we need to be prepared to do it as early as next year. I don't think we want to go into next year $600,000 in the hole.
Okay.
Any other discussions? All right, so we talked about a lot, and I think this was a really good meeting. So I think right now we're at the point where we need to move into executive session.
It's not working, it's not.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to move into executive session for all of the following reasons: to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second. Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. The time is 7:07. I don't anticipate there being anything significant to talk about at the end of executive session for anybody that was thinking about sticking around. For those of y'all that was here tonight, we certainly appreciate you being here. And again, Coach Reynolds, it's nice to have you in the audience, and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, we're back from executive session. The time is 9:24 p.m. So I'm looking for, so the next item of the agenda is personnel items. I'm looking for a motion to approve the administrative, certified, classified, exempt, and supplemental nominations as amended.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, can I get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
So the next item is personnel items B, and we're going to table that for tonight. So the next item of business is adjournment. I am looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
And that adjourns the meeting.